All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Looks like our panelists are on. So again, I would like to welcome our panelists and then also our guests. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you a quick intro and then leave the word to Brother Sadiq, inshallah. Dear brothers and sisters, in the second segment of our Sunday program, inshallah, we're going to be learning about Islamic Center of Southern California, his history, and the making of American Muslim identity. And for this, we have a really esteemed guests. And we have Professor Mary Jane O'Donnell from California State University, Northridge. And then one of our board members, Dr. Jamil Mohmand, is with us. And then also one of our longtime members, Brother Sadiq Alu, is with us. At this point, I'm going to pass the word to Brother Sadiq Alu to take over, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Sadiq. I think you are on mute, Brother Sadiq.
Mute.
All right, now.
Alaikum assalam. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and we are glad to have you all join us. We are very excited about documenting the history of the Islamic Center of Southern California, or ICSC as we often abbreviate it. It is said that it is important to know where you have been to know where you want to go. We hope this project contributes towards that. And as Azim said, my name is Sadiq Alu, and I'm honored to co-lead this ICSC history project together with Dr. Hashim Sharif. Today, we are privileged to have two wonderful speakers and members of our history project team, Dr. Jamil Mohmand and Professor Mary Jane O'Donnell. I want to first go over briefly how the program will unfold. We will have Dr. Jamil share his memories, followed by Professor Mary Jane O'Donnell's insight into recording oral history. We will then have a question and answer session, so send your questions via chat. Finally, we'll adjourn for Zohar prayers a little bit after 1 o'clock. So let me start by introducing Dr. Jamil Mohmand. Most of you know and readily recognize him. He has practically grown up in the center, and he will share some of his memories with us today. Dr. Jamil was born in Pomona, California, and attended the Islamic Center sporadically with his father, Dr. Khalil Mohmand, who was one of the leaders and made significant contribution to the center's growth. Jamil attended the center when it was located on City Terrace, and later when it moved to St. Andrew's Place. He attended Sunday school and enjoyed the Eid celebrations, like most of the kids. Those are the really great memories. He remembers fondly the gentle nature of Mr. Rashad Tafriti, Ed Awad, and Alice Ade as dynamic leaders in the 1970s. When the Islamic Center moved to its current location on Vermont Avenue, he became more involved in the center and joined the youth group where he was an undergraduate at UCLA. He became a teacher in Sunday school when Najwa Al-Atrabi was the principal. He eventually became the principal of Sunday school and headed it for several years before being elected to the ICSC board in the mid-2000s. He was the ICSC chair for 1 year. After serving on ICSC board, he joined the board of New Horizons School, Los Angeles, for many years. In 2019, he returned to the ICSC board to the present. Currently, he's the chair of the ICSC Building Committee, a member of the ICSC History Project team, and a member of the Education Council. He's actively involved in New Horizons School, Pasadena, where he enjoys delivering Friday khutbahs and serving as a judge in their annual science fair. Dr. Jamil is the father of Sahar and Marjun Mohmand, both products of New Horizons School, Pasadena, and the husband of Miriam Mohmand, the lady behind his success. Professionally, Dr. Jamil is a professor of biochemistry at California State University, Los Angeles, where he is the chair of the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. Dr. Jamil Mohmand would invite you to start.
Thank you very much, Sadiq, for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. And I want to say assalamu alaikum to everyone who is our panelists and also who is our audience to listen to what I hope will be a delightful presentation. Let me go ahead and share my screen, if you don't mind. I have a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation to share with you. Okay, so Sadiq, if you could just give me a thumbs up if you can see this first slide. It says a brief history of the Islamic Center.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Again, thank you for inviting me to give a small presentation of the Islamic Center of Southern California. And I want to start by talking about why I'm interested in this area. It's not only for nostalgia, but also I think what we'll see is the incredible foresightness and activity that our forefathers and foremothers gave to us starting from the 1950s until the present. And the idea that they would sacrifice a significant part of their lives to seeing that this small institution would eventually grow and become a dynamic force as it is today is significant. I mean, these are mostly immigrants who were struggling to survive in this society, raising families, also trying to survive professionally in their jobs, and perhaps also sending money back home. So stretched probably to the limit, but yet they did not forget about their religion. They did not forget about how important it is to have that aspect of their lives flourish. And so they decided to come together to form an institution that eventually became the Islamic Center of Southern California. And my heart and feelings go out to them for making this tremendous sacrifice that they did. And they could have done other things. They could have enjoyed their Sundays and Saturdays. They could have been involved in perhaps other activities, but yet they chose to put their drive and energy into this institution. So it is for that appreciation that I got very interested in this project. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. But I should mention that because of the time constraints and because of my very limited knowledge in this area, I can only touch on a few of the many, many, many individuals that contribute to the Islamic Center of Southern California. So what I represent here is just probably the tip of the iceberg. And I know that I will be forgetting and perhaps not acknowledging many names that have toiled successfully to make the Islamic Center what it is. But due to the limitations of time and due to, like I said, my limited knowledge, I apologize ahead of time for those that I'm not able to mention in this short presentation. It's only about 10 or 11 slides. So here is a rough timeline emphasizing really the early years, because I think Professor O'Donnell will emphasize kind of the tremendous growth that happened in the mid-2000s in her talk. So I'm going to try to limit my presentation mostly to the early years of the Islamic Center. And so what we have here, if you see my cursor, is that the Islamic Center was really established in 1953 at a rented house on Fountain Avenue in Hollywood. And at that time, there were very, very few immigrants. This is before the Immigration Act in the mid-1960s, so it was very difficult for folks from the Middle East and other Muslim population dense countries to come to the United States. And so a lot of these were students that were here on student visas to get together. But they did rent a house for a time in the 1950s. And then later they moved to East Los Angeles, very close to where I work right now at Cal State Los Angeles, to City Terrace. So they purchased a place in City Terrace and conducted their activities. We have a few snapshots of what that looked like, very few, but what you'll see is really the wide variety of the members of the Islamic Center that contributed to this tiny institution in the very beginning. From there, they moved to probably a location that many people on this call will remember, the St. Andrew's Place, which was a little bit more towards the central part of Los Angeles, maybe a little bit west of the Harbor Freeway. And by the way, the Harbor Freeway was the only major freeway, it was the only freeway that was going north and south in Los Angeles at that time. So location is very important. Okay? And it was at that time that we had a really amazing, dynamic religious leader who in the name of Dr. Al-Biali, and I can still remember his amazing talks on Sundays. By the way, that was the only time that I had the chance to go to the Islamic Center. There were very few Friday Jummah prayers open for people living close to home. So we would usually go only on Sundays to the Islamic Center. And then from here started a tremendous growth in the number of members that would attend. There was a fundraising campaign in order to eventually move the location to its current spot in 1976, which is on 434 South Vermont, which you can see in my virtual background is where we are at right now. And shortly after that, we were able to secure the services of another dynamic leader and thinker and author in Islam, and that is Dr. Maher Hattout, who moved from snowy Buffalo, New York to come to Los Angeles. And Dr. Maher Hattout, under his leadership and vision and extreme energy and activity, expanded the Islamic Center's reach. And you'll see that there were many daughter organizations that budded from the Islamic Center at this time. For example, in 1984, the first New Horizons School was founded, which has now been expanded to 4 campuses. And then in 1988, very significantly, Dr. Hattout started with my good friend, Salama Mariyati, the Muslim Public Affairs Council. And so that started in 1988. And then later on, in large response to the atrocities that were happening in Bosnia to women, the Muslim Women's League was founded. And they were very active for several years. And I'm not going to go further than that, although we could certainly fill this with many, many other activities. but like I said, I'm going to really keep my comments to this early era of the Islamic Center. So with that, we'll continue on. So here I was able to secure from the history project folks, that being Sadiq and Dr. Hashim, some early photos of the Islamic Center as it existed in City Terrace. So as far as I know, I don't have any photos of the Fountain Avenue house, but this is City Terrace. And as I said, these are some of the early members of the Islamic Center. And here we have on the right, we have some of the named members of the individuals who were the force behind the City Terrace group. And they are named here for you to know. I love the fact that they're all documented here. And as I said before, a wide variety of ethnicities and cultures were brought together under one roof at the Islamic Center, which by and large has maintained its diversity throughout the years, alhamdulillah. So next we went to the Islamic Center, I'm sorry, the St. Andrew's Place. So that was the second move that happened. And here again, we are standing in front of, our forefathers are standing in front of the Islamic Center as it exists. I have, again, very fond memories of the center, the Sunday school, the back area where beverages and food was often served. And at that time, it was called the Islamic Foundation of Southern California, but it did change its name eventually to the Islamic Center of Southern California. I want to pause here and mention Dr. Muhammad El-Tawansi, who, may God have peace and mercy on his soul, has passed away within the last week. And you can see he's here listed as one of the significant members of the Islamic Center. And now we're at the current building, 434 South Vermont, and I'll go into some detail about the individuals that made these transitions happen from one to the other. So I learned from the history project that in the 1950s, there was an individual by the name of Sheikh Abdullah Galadari, who was living in Los Angeles at the time, originally from Iran. He was trained in classical Arabic, and because of his knowledge about the Quran, he was actually prayers his mom at the time that the Islamic Center was in Fountain Avenue. So early days is Sheikh Abdullah Galadari. Many of you probably recognize this last name. This is the great father of Ali Galadari, who was a co-youth group member with me at the Islamic Center of Southern California. And so his father led the prayers there at I personally remember these types of images on the lower left here with Dr. Albi Ali speaking from the podium and giving his Sunday speeches and knowledge. And the caption up here, although you don't see it, says, "In the name of God, most compassionate, most merciful, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the prophet of God." And it's all in English up there. So from the very beginning, there was this sense of delivering material in English, because the thought was that the children and the children's children of the congregation would eventually appreciate the fact that all the language of the Islamic Center for most purposes is going to be in English, except of course the prayers and du'as and so on. So I specifically remember this dynamic Dr. Mohsen Albiali giving his talks on. And finally, I should say finally, but and then in the late 70s, as I said before, we have Dr. Maher Hattu, who was a cardiologist, practicing cardiologist, and in his spare time after doing his cardiology work, he would spend it at the Islamic Center of Southern California, and really captured the idea of the American Muslim identity. I would say he was the one that shifted the thinking of our congregation from one of sometimes thinking about what it would be like to go to the Middle East and live there, to the fact that, no, we are in America to stay, and we need to be thinking about ourselves as Americans. And so he really captured that idea and was involved in so many activities. And talking to some of his relatives, I realized that the way he was able to do so much was because he only had about 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, would get up and start to work very, very early and accomplish so much in his life. So this is a reverence towards those individuals who led us throughout the years. But there are other individuals that contribute to the Islamic Center in other ways. And I list here some really, some of you may recognize this person as Thomas, and you might be thinking, why, Jamil, are you showing his picture? He's an actor from Lebanon, not a Muslim. He was a starving actor for many years. He went to a church at one point because he was fairly desperate, and he made a prayer in the church. And the prayer was, if God allow me to be successful, I will make sure that I build an institution that would serve the poor. And of course, many of you know that he was the founder of St. Jude's Hospital. He also lived in Los Angeles, and he heard about the fundraising campaign for the Islamic Center, and he actually donated funds to the Islamic Center, even though he was Muslim. So incredible altruism on his part, and philanthropist Danny Thomas, and may God be pleased with him. We have the movie producer Mustafa Akkad, who was an active member of the Islamic Center. He was a board member of the Islamic Center in the I want to say late 60s, and he was a student at UCLA, then later on at USC. And he, of course, is very, very famous for his movies, especially The Message and The Lion of the Desert. So he was also a significant contributor to the Islamic Center. Then on the upper right-hand side here, we have Sheikh Mohammed Dakhil, who is, you can probably tell from the background, he's giving a talk at the Islamic Center of Southern California while we were at St. Andrew's Place. And he is a founder of not only the Islamic Center of Southern California, but other masajids in the area as well. But what's interesting is that he was significant in his ability to fundraise while he was living in Libya. We're talking about the early 70s. along with his son, Dr. Mahmoud Dakhil, they raised $50,000 to contribute to the Islamic Center of Southern California Building Fund. And in those days, that was a tremendous sum. And he received a delegation from the Islamic Center board in Libya. And it was through those donations that we eventually were able to get into the current location that we're at right now, which is 434 South Vermont. And his son, Dafir Dakhil, is very, very active in the Muslim community in Southern California today. And then we also need to acknowledge another significant contributor to the Islamic Center, and that is Sheikh Ahmed Zaki Yamani. He's from Saudi Arabia. He became captivated by Dr. Maher Hattout and Dr. Hassan Hattout, the ideology that that came with their viewpoint of Islam, and he continuously contributed to the education funds of the Islamic Center for many, many years. And so a tremendous individual, again, who was intellectual and also influential in world politics as well. Well, these are just a few of the significant contributors to the Islamic Center's rich history. Now, I put this in here because I think it signifies something. It's a little bit of a break from the profiles that I've been showing previously. But first of all, I want to thank Amira Al-Sarraf for sending me this. I appreciate that very much. But what you see here is a construction site for the New Horizons School, okay? And so that's ongoing. And we have two significant contributors on many levels, financial as well as other levels as well, to the Islamic Center. Mr. Abed Awad and his wife, Pat Awad. And so they were significant in shaping the Islamic Center and also contributing to the New Horizons schools. And then on the right here, you've got a passel of children who became students of the New Horizons School, and we're learning from this institution. So I like this because, and I also like this idea of the new horizon, because this almost looks like a new horizon right here in the back here. Something was here before. There's a new horizon on which a school is being built for our future, for the future generation. Here we have also three leaders at the Islamic Center. Orhan Akbarut was the chair of the Islamic Center in 1968 and a board member in the late 1960s. And he chaired the Islamic Center at a time of tremendous growth. Again, we were getting lots of influxes of families from the Middle East. And so he oversaw that. And this is also a time of tremendous fundraising as well. And we have Dr. Sabri Al-Farah, who was also a visionary in that he was on the search for a larger location from the St. Andrew's Place. And he was the one that spotted has stayed to the board at the time. It even somewhat looks like a mosque, this the current location. If you look at it, it does have some features of a mosque. I should say that was not the first location that was looked at. There was a location that was looked at very close to USC, and there was also a location in Hollywood that was looked at as a potential place to put a large building of the Islamic Center of Southern California. but we eventually settled on the place in Vermont. I'm going to come back to Dr. Al-Farah at the very end of the talk and kind of sum up my talk with an interesting anecdote. And then we have Dr. Nazir Khaja, who is extremely active at the Islamic Center, especially in the IIS, the Islamic Information Service, and which was a television program that was pioneered at the Islamic Center of Southern California, and he kept that going for many years. And it actually put the Islamic Center on the media map, Dr. Nazir Khaja's efforts there. So tremendous contributions. And now we come to a very significant group of ladies here, the Women's Auxiliary. And I want to say this with deep heart feelings. The Islamic Center, unlike other places that I've gone to, unlike other mosques that I've gone to, had a warm and embracing vibe to it. The idea that you were accepted with love came principally to me from the Women's Auxiliary. They had no problem giving you a hug and making you feel very, very warm and welcome at the Islamic Center. And I attribute that largely to the Women's Auxiliary. And I know that I'm just naming a few of those individuals, but we have Ruth Akbarut, Alice O'Day, who I remember being a very, very shy young boy, and she made me feel so welcome at the Islamic Center. And then we have Jane Al-Farah, and we have Mrs. Alfie, Esmeralda Alfie, and Pat Awad. These were movers and shakers at the Islamic Center in terms of providing that environment. Pat Awad, as you probably are aware, was the one who thought of the idea of the youth group. And the first youth group meeting was actually held at her home. Alice Aude, I found out, was actually a board member of the Islamic Center in the late 1960s. So probably, I want to say she was the first female board member of the Islamic Center. I don't know that for sure, but she was a board member. And of course, Mrs. Alfie, a significant contributor in terms of ideas, and was the brainchild behind many things, including the BIAE, and also the mortuary service that we have at the Islamic Center. So tremendous contributions from these women to our center. And we're getting close to the end here. I just want to mention other intellectuals who made their stamp on the Islamic Center of Southern California. We have Dr. Omar Alfie, who was a scientist and a geneticist, and also the brainchild behind the New Horizons schools, okay? And a major financial contributor to the Islamic Center. We have Dr. Aslam Abdullah, whose khutbahs are mesmerizing, and also the chief editor of the Muslim Observer, a major magazine and a major newspaper periodical, and who also continues to enlighten us with his khutbahs. And we have Dr. Hassan Hattout, who, in my opinion, brought with him the idea of Islam principally as a religion of mercy and love. I can still remember him saying that in the world, you really have two kinds of people, those with a loving heart and those with a hating heart. And we have to always try to convince people to be of a loving heart. I remember those words scorched in my mind. And then we have Dr. Fatih Osman, who also brought his famous book, the concepts in the Quran, and was also an intellectual force in the Islamic Center. Between these individuals, we have lots and lots of publications, as well as from Dr. Maher Hattoud as well. An amazing time. Before leaving, I want to cite my source documents and acknowledgements. I'm sorry, this is the academic in me. I want to acknowledge Omar Ritchie for thinking and supporting the history project from a few years ago, Sadiq Alou and Dr. Hashim Sharif. These are individuals that have been the driving force behind the project. I also need to cite Muhammad Yaqub, whose brief history of the Islamic Center of Southern California brought a lot of the source material to which I am giving you. Dr. Dafer Dakhil also provided photos and information that I did not know about, which was critical for this presentation. My good friend Ali Galadari gave me insights into his father's contributions to the Islamic Center, being one of the early imams, and also the book by Mary Jane O'Donnell, which was just published, republished recently, and was sent out to the community. That provided good source material as well. I have one more slide to share with you, and then I will give the podium back to Sadiq, and that is the future. What does the history of the Islamic Center mean for the future generations? And there are some physical things that are happening. We are in the process of designing the remodel of the first floor of the Islamic Center. And so we hope to roll that out to the community within the next few months. We're excited about that. We also know that we have satellites, one in Pasadena, the other one in West Los Angeles, and they are growing, and we are hoping to expand our reach to other communities. And then because of the pandemic, we're starting to develop an online presence as well. We're starting to get audience members from, or people that are interested in the Islamic Center of Southern California from outside the Southern California area. But I would like to talk a little bit about this last point, and that is the transition to the next generation. And this, to me, out of everything that I've said, is the key. The previous generations have put down the foundation and the institutions and the love and the ideology that I think we are witnessing a successful transition to the next generation of Muslims. My children and my children's children will hopefully enjoy the fruits of Islam and expand that reach to other people as well. And I said I was going to return to Dr. Sabri Al-Farah, Dr. Al-Farah. And when he was looking for space in near USC to establish a larger building for the Islamic Center of Southern California, he got in contact with the chair of the Middle Eastern Studies Department at USC. So we're talking in the early 1970s. And the chair said, "Why are you bothering with expanding? You probably know this, but the next generation, your children's children, will not be Muslim. They will be Christian, and they will just dissolve in this society." And Dr. Sabri Al-Farah did not agree with that, but it's interesting how that was the thought process. There was a chance that that could have happened. But what we see instead is a strong position of our children interested in Islam, and hopefully the continuation of this American Muslims into the next decades to come, inshallah. I'm finished with my presentation here. So I will stop sharing and I will give the podium back to Sada.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jamil, for that very interesting presentation. We appreciate it. We're running short of time, but I want to tell Professor O'Donnell not to worry too much about it. We'll cut down on the Q&A probably. So please proceed with your full presentation. But before that, let me introduce Professor Mary Jane O'Donnell. Professor O'Donnell has been associated with the center for a while now. She's done some critical work documenting the history of the center, which has enabled us to really form the foundation of documenting our history. She will share how she went about this so we may gain some insight as to how to record our oral history. Professor Mary Jane O'Donnell is a lecturer at Department of Religious Studies, School of Humanities, California State University at Northridge. She's been involved with researching and documenting history of the Islamic Center, as I said, since 2002, actually. In fact, Islamic Center of Southern California was the focus of her PhD dissertation. There's a book that Jamil mentioned to the community about a month ago by Islamic Center. This was a reprint of the article about the center written by Professor O'Donnell. It was previously published in a book called Race, Religion, Region Landscapes of Encounter in the American West, published by University of Arizona Press in 2006. Professor O'Donnell's interests include identity, change, and innovation in urban religious communities. She is also author of Finding God in the City of Angels in Discover Los Angeles, published by Getty Trust publication, J. Paul Getty Museum. Her work on the center's history has been invaluable. She is very gracious and continues to guide us. We feel privileged and appreciate to have her as a consultant on our history project team as a volunteer. Professor O'Donnell.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you again for having me at the center, and I wish we were at the center. I enjoy seeing the people I see on Zoom, but it is, I miss being there, and I'm sure all of you have missed being there over the past, however long it's been, it seems ages. But unlike Dr. Mohmand, I was not raised in the center. I'm not Muslim, but I was going at a very late age, by the way, for those of you who think, oh, I don't know, I'd like to get something new. I started my PhD when I was like 58 or something like that. So when it came to the time of my dissertation, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. My field was in religions in North America, but the dean of the center at that time was Karen Torgeson, and she had Dr. Omar Alfi, who was on one of the boards at the School of Religion at CGU, at Claremont Graduate University. And Dr. Alfi had asked her, do you have somebody who could write a kind of brief history of the center? It was my lucky star day kind of thing that Karen Torgeson called me and said, would you like to do that? And I was practically at the center before I was able to say yes. And then I met Dr. Alfi, and then I was really thrilled to do it. I had found him one of the most remarkable human beings, and so many people at the center, the most remarkable human beings I have ever met. And what he did, and I'm going to sort of abbreviate things here, but essentially what I was able to do, because I want to sort of give some idea of how everyone can participate in the history of the center. And my approach was to do it through oral history. Now, when I first started this project, I wasn't intending it to be my dissertation, but, and to some extent, having a tape recorder, and Dr. Alfi had sort of lined up the people from each decade up until the point at which we were at, which was 2002 or so. And so I would sit there for hours with this parade of people. To some extent, it was marvelous because it allowed you to actually see the people who created the center. And it was created really from scratch. I mean, this was so interesting to me in so many ways of how a religious group started something so and put so much of themselves into it. I mean, absolutely so much of themselves. But one of the things that I found, and one of the things, and so I want to kind of give practical advice for what folks can do who want to participate in this project that you have. And that is that oral history is something that allows you to know not just the who, what, when, and where of a place or a situation, but allows you to know the people, allows you kind of the different perspectives of the people at the center over a period of time. And I was able to get that through the parade of people that I was introduced to week by week by week. And this took almost 3 months to complete just that part. And at that time, I was recording and I was thinking, but as I was thinking, and what begins to happen, you really get to know a place by the stories people tell. The stories people tell are the heart and soul of what a place is about. And the folks at the Islamic Center, again, I think Abed Awad was the first person that I interviewed, and he was terrific. I mean, it was like, and I was very happy to meet Pat Awad as well, and she was also terrific. And there were just, I mean, there were so many different people that not only did I like personally, but I thought, boy, you're remarkable. I mean, you are really remarkable. And and this was because it was so near 9/11. And I had studied Islam before, and so I had some idea of it. But again, it was from an academic standpoint. It was not a in-depth look at what and the inside of an institution was. But I will say a couple of things very briefly. Was that this ability to what it allowed me to do was to know not just the center and its history, but the people of the center, the caliber of the people at the center. Now, was that everyone who came to the center? Of course not. But it was, you saw a group of people who were pioneers. I mean, who really built something from scratch. And as was said before, I mean, they didn't have to do this. This was not, it wasn't a compelling thing, but it was a self-compelled thing. And that, I think, is something to always remember about the inception of the center. But when we get to the practical thing of oral history, I think it has a lot of advantages. One, almost everybody can do it. Now, I think you need to do it in a thoughtful way and maybe with some instruction and some kind of organization of how it's going to be done. But when you begin to do that, and it's transcribed, you begin to see these patterns emerging that you didn't know about, or that I didn't know about. But I would say even the people involved sometimes don't know about. Like, oh, look at that, or look at the group of people that I don't know that much about, and now I'm learning more about them. And so now I see how this mix of people is beginning to happen. And so that's, I think, one of the real joys of doing oral history is you meet people. I mean, for one thing, you just meet the people who are in your community. And then you begin to find out their stories, and then you can begin to record them. And then as you record them, it doesn't mean that you have to write a book on it or that you have to do something extraordinary with it. But the center has that material then that can be codified and kept. I mean, it really is something. One of the reasons why Dr. Alfie wanted somebody to write the center's history was that nobody had bothered to collect it before or put it together, try to put it together. And I think that that's something that can continue on. And the history of the center, I think in particular, and the extraordinary thing that they did, and my focus was on the development of an American Muslim identity, was that, that it not only were they starting a new organization, which is kind of tricky enough in itself, but they were really starting to think about a new way to think about Islam and being a Muslim, and then being an American. And how will that fit within the American society? And one of the things that happens, because I study a broad range of religions and mostly religion and politics in the United States, which is a whole topic unto itself. But anyway, that you begin to see that many of the different traditions that have come here have had to adjust. I mean, they've just had to adjust to the American way of life and to the culture. And so one of the things that people fear is, how do I lose my faith? Or, what if I make this adjustment, will I lose my faith? And you saw, and I can't go into it specifically, but you saw over time after time after time, Dr. Maharatut and Hassanatut and everyone who was thinking about this American Muslim identity of how to achieve it. And one of the things that they were focusing on, which I think is very, very important, and which was brought up before, is the generations to come. And the point that I make in the dissertation, and actually, this is just actually, it was an article that I wrote that was part of my dissertation, but not completely. As I looked at the whole of my dissertation, I really came to the conclusion that whether or not Islam is planted in American soil at this point, and with the effort that people have made to become both a part of the country and to become both then a very good Muslim that is completely faithful to Islam and its teachings, and yet is able to thrive in this area. And I think that is something that is the next step, is what is this future generation? What do they think about it? And so forth. Anyway, so I'll stop there. And but it was a pleasure to sort of see you, although I don't see anybody, but but it was a pleasure to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor O'Donnell. You've been very generous and educating us of what it is to do the oral history. It's been remarkable. Thank you, appreciate it. And we'll continue to lean on you. I hope we can to consult us moving forward too. Are there any questions? I don't see any. We should continue, have time for the speaker. Well, I don't see any questions. So, it's a good thing because we're running short of time.
There is one question. There is one question that I
sure.
see here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it says here, did you get any funds from foreign countries? So there was, I said in my talk, there was a delegation of folks that went to individuals in foreign countries, in Libya, and also in Kuwait. And from there, they got individual funding, but no funding from government organizations, as far as I'm aware of. So that is where some of the funding did come from.
Alrighty, that's true. Well, thank you both, Dr.
I see some more. I'm not sure if your chat is on, Sadek. I do see some more questions. Dan Alfara is saying, what more do you need for the project? So now is your chance, Sadek, for your ask. What more do you need?
You see, Jane is always helpful in setting the scene up. But thank you, Jane, for that question. Yes, we need everybody, and Jane has been extremely helpful in a lot of ways. She's provided picture, continue to provide context, review what notes we had. So thank you, Jane. Picking back on what do we need next? There are three ways you can help, and thank you for all of you for joining, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation. And it's your turn to contribute to this, and there are three ways. As Professor O'Donnell said, one is to join our team to interview the center's members. We'll provide all the necessary help and support and guidance. We have, for example, John Abu Bakr, who joined the interview, who joined the team and interviewed Imam Safir Siddiq. We have Gail Kanad, who is preparing to do an interview. And we'll appreciate your help. And I promise it'll be extremely rewarding. Just ask Joanne, those of you who know Joan Abu Bakr, ask her and she'll tell you how exciting it was. So we would love to hear from you. Second thing, write and share your personal memories of the center. This will be enriching, as Professor O'Donnell said. This presents the heart. It's not the facts and whatever. This is really the heart of the history. And third, final thing is collect and share your pictures of the center's event. This will be it's a fun, uplifting project going down memory lane in this COVID times. You can either scan the pictures in high resolution with the date and names of the people who are in it and send it to us, or you can hold on to them and bring them to the center when we open. We'll have a scanning station at the time, and you can take, we can scan it and you can take back your pictures once we've scanned it. All right. Any other questions you see, Jamil?
Yeah, there's at least one other question. This is coming from Sister Fadila. It says, I'm interested in learning about the Islamic Center's efforts in creating spaces for multi-faith discussions. And I should say that those have been going on for many, many years. Dr. Maher Hattouk was famously known to be involved in interfaith dialogue between those of many different faiths, and struck up deep relationships with rabbis and priests and pastors from many different faiths. Currently, we do have an interfaith council at the Islamic Center. And so if Fadila, you send me your email address, I could get you in contact with the person who's in charge of that. I should say also that Jan Al-Farah is part of an interfaith group as well, and that's been thriving for the past several years, learning to come together on areas of commonality, which are many, and also learning from each other's differences as well. And so that is a very, very strong nature of the Islamic Center. So if you email me at jmohmand@yahoo.com, I can certainly forward your request to the leaders in the interfaith dialogue that we have at the Islamic Center. Oh, okay. I got your email. Very good. Got it.
Just to add to what Jamil said, that yes, Maher Hattouk became the visible, and he took it to the next level. But the interfaith started very early on with people like Muhammad al-Sabri, and you know probably Zain and al-Sabri's father, who came here, and maybe other people beyond that reached out quite a bit to radio stations and all of that. So, and then it continued. So what's amazing is that how visionary these people were. This is in the 50s when it wasn't in vogue to the interfaith wasn't in vogue, and they started. Okay, any other questions? Wonderful. Thank you once again to Jamil and Professor O'Donnell for making it a wonderful session, and we hope we'll be able to do it again. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Brother Sadek. Before we close, I just have a quick announcement, dear brothers and sisters. First of all, on behalf of Islamic Center of Southern California, I would like to thank our guests. We benefited a lot and we learned a lot of information about our beautiful Islamic Center of Southern California. For this, I would like to thank Professor O'Donnell and Dr. Mohmand and Brother Alu for this beautiful presentation. Next Sunday, we are going to have Mr. Salam Al-Marayati, President of MPAC, and he will be talking about new administration and Muslim community. So please join us. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, brothers.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.